Hello everyone, my name is Kim Hensley and I've worked with Yardi Systems for 15 years. I'm currently a manager for procure-to-pay, and so thanks for joining me today. So today we're going to discuss the challenges you may be experiencing with your procurement process and offer some recommendations on how you can revolutionize procurement. So a manual procure-to-pay process creates issues for multiple teams within the organization. So for invoice processing, much of the struggle is around the manual scanning and data entry. And there's also a lack of visibility into budgets and how pending invoices are affecting over budget variances. In addition, because there's minimal oversight, this can often lead to duplicate payments to vendors and data errors that can lead to costly overruns. And if you're still using a manual process for invoice approvals, you know the time and effort it can take to get the invoice to the right people in a timely manner. Without a centralized automated invoice process, invoices can be lost and a clear audit trail is hard to maintain. And of course, without an automated process, it is difficult to enforce AP policies. So we see real benefits when the procure-to-pay process is automated. So we analyzed over 800 of our current Yardi PayScan clients. And with PayScan, Yardi clients see significant savings in terms of speed, cost, and accuracy. For example, while it can take upwards of 20 days to take an invoice through an approval workflow and ready it for payment with a manual process, the median Yardi client accomplishes this in under 5 days. When using a disjointed process, the cost of a fully loaded invoice can be up to $35, whereas people who automate spend as little as $4 per invoice. It's not just speed that improves, the accuracy of your process can also increase dramatically. For best-in-class PayScan clients, corrections are needed less than 2% of the time. So this means a savings in time spent on corrections that now this time can be used on different efforts. So now let's discuss the effort and time you may be spending on scanning invoice images and completing data entry. So year to date, 30 million invoices were self-scanned by our clients. Our analysis shows that it takes at least 5 minutes to scan and enter data for one invoice. This means 2.5 million hours spent on this manual activity alone. If that seems incredible, let's just look at the time spent by the typical PayScan client. For the typical client, they process around 35,000 invoices annually. So this activity takes around 2,900 hours, or the effort of one full-time employee. With outsourcing this manual task, that employee can now focus on higher value activities like managing the vendor relationship and managing contract pricing. As it relates to procurement, we often find a high degree of non-compliant spend and a disparate set of suppliers across the properties. This, combined with a lack of reporting, can create missed opportunities to leverage your spend for potentially more favorable terms or consistency in product purchasing across properties. Another challenge you may be facing is vendor management. A typical PayScan client works with almost 1,000 vendors, and for larger clients, they could be managing 3,000 plus vendors. The effort to manage this large group alone is tremendous. The effort to collect compliance documentation can take the effort of one full-time employee. Then there is the ongoing management of monitoring compliance and maintaining the vendor information. So this can lead to outdated vendor information, and with the manual effort, it can create a risk for your vendors falling out of compliance. So let's continue this discussion around vendor management. Vendors are the lifeblood of the accounts payable process. Making them more efficient is one of the quickest ways to make your AP process more efficient. To understand real estate organizations' vendor bases, Yardi analyzed 25 million invoices processed by Yardi Procure-to-Pay. These invoices were submitted by approximately 1 million vendors to more than 1,000 real estate businesses in multiple countries. Through this analysis, we found a consistent segmentation of vendors: those who send up to 4 invoices per month to a client, or low volume vendors, and those who send 5 or more invoices per month, or high volume vendors. Low volume vendors account for 93% of a typical vendor base, but generate only 25% of invoices. This could be because they are providing a specialty service or because the vendor was used one time for convenience. High volume vendors make up 7% of a typical vendor base, but generate 75% of invoices. So the AP team spends the majority of their time scanning, keying, and verifying the invoices for these high volume vendors. So to create some efficiencies, we have some recommendations. For the low volume vendors, provide an online vendor portal where they can update their profile, check the status of their invoices and payments, and submit invoices to you digitally. Just allowing the vendor visibility into their invoice and payment status saves time and effort on both sides, since there will be no need to contact your team and no time spent researching the invoice and invoice status. For high volume vendors, there is typically an existing relationship and a dedicated contact at your company, which does make it easier to communicate with these vendors. But think of the time that can be saved if we can automate the invoice process for these vendors as well. And remember, again, they're making up 75% of your invoices. So these vendors can also use an online platform to submit invoices, but this may not be feasible for larger vendors. If they have the technology, they can use EDI, or electronic data interchange, to automate the submission of invoices. But if neither of these options are viable, we recommend outsourcing invoice scanning and data entry. The challenges seen for invoice processing, procurement, and vendor management lead to challenges experienced in operations. Our clients often struggle with closing the disconnect between what is happening on the properties and decisions being made centrally. The visibility into budgets, as I mentioned before, and cash flow are often lacking, and access to centralized information can create inconsistent policies between communities. Implementing the right P2P platform can dramatically increase access to information and improve decision-making across an organization. Now that we have discussed the challenges of procure-to-pay, let's look at solutions provided by Yardi. So procure-to-pay has several components which make it the most complete AP platform on the market. PayScan provides electronic invoice processing and is our most widely adopted module, with over 2,800 clients processing 40 million invoices annually with over 100,000 approvers. With PayScan, electronic invoice images are captured and stored, and real-time cash flow and budget checks can be completed during the AP approval process. Included is our full-service invoice processing. This is where Yardi imports and keys invoices from either standard mail or email, virtually eliminating manual effort for your team. VendorCafe is our widely adopted, free of charge, self-service portal for your vendors to manage their entire relationship with you, as well as with other owners with whom they conduct business. There are currently over 255,000 vendors using VendorCafe today. This one-stop shop gives your vendors visibility into purchase orders, work orders, RFPs, and contracts. They also gain visibility into their payment status, and they can submit invoices digitally, saving them time and new effort by automatically initiating approval workflows. VendorShield, which is coming to Canada in December, provides full service and ongoing vendor credential verification, compliance, and vendor auditing. VendorShield monitoring is completely customizable to the specific insurance requirements at the company, property, or vendor level. VendorShield takes the burden of managing compliance off your team and helps mitigate risk and ensure vendor compliance. Vendors use VendorCafe to submit their EIN, business registration, insurance, license, and other information to the Yardi VendorShield team, and the compliancy status is then visible to both you and your vendor. With Yardi Marketplace, you can shop online and on the go while controlling spend across your portfolio. You can upload your own catalogs or choose from over 1 million items in our Yardi catalogs from Ackland's Granger, HD Supply Canada, Sherwin-Williams, and Veritiv. Upon approval of an invoice, we consolidate all payables and allow payment via check cash or PAD EFT. Automating payments reduces operational costs associated with AP staffing. So you can reduce time spent on invoice creation and approvals with PayScan. We can automate invoice creation with full service, and centralized invoice processing provides easy retrieval of invoice information and a clear audit trail. In addition to our desktop version, we also have mobile applications where approvals and procurement can be easily completed. VendorCafe, again, is our widely adopted vendor portal with over 255,000 vendors using today. It is a self-service portal, again, for invoicing, for viewing of payment status, for viewing of work orders, bidding, and for tracking and managing relationships with one or more multiple owners by the vendor. Yardi has a dedicated vendor support team which helps train vendors to use VendorCafe and helps with any questions or technical issues that they have along the way. VendorShield. So again, VendorShield is coming and will be available in Canada in December in beta version. And as we discussed before, the process of managing COIs and insurance compliance is challenging. And many clients are tracking this in Excel or relying on vendors for providing them updated information. So this process is time consuming for all. VendorShield, which is our vendor compliance and credentialing and insurance monitoring system, brings significant value and zero cost to our clients. So VendorShield provides one-stop compliance, again, at no additional cost to you. The vendor assumes the fees and Yardi manages the onboarding. And it's fully integrated with VendorCafe and Voyager. If a vendor becomes non-compliant, Voyager can freeze POs and payments automatically. And by automating vendor screening, Yardi reduces your business and reputational risk while freeing up valuable personnel resources. VendorShield features an easy-to-use dashboard to manage vendor approvals and communications and helps mitigate compliance risk across your entire portfolio. With Marketplace, you can standardize purchasing, shop easily using procure-to-pay and our mobile applications. And with our reporting and Marketplace analytics, you can gain insight into spend and save time on procurement approvals and invoice creation. Again, the current vendors available in Canada are Ackland's Granger, HD Supply Canada, Sherwin-Williams, and Veritiv. So providing your team with an easy-to-use mobile application can also provide efficiencies. Yardi's easy-to-use procure-to-pay application allows your team to quickly approve invoices, create new invoices, and view detailed invoice information and milestones, as well as make purchases. And once you have onboarded your vendor and verified their compliancy, ordered goods or services, and approved their invoice, you now simply need to pay that invoice. And with Yardi's Bill Pay, we can help reduce operational costs by automating the creation of PAD EFT or check cash. While gaining efficiencies, you will still maintain control over which and when payments are released for creation. With the introduction of bill pay, all payments will still display on the process payment screen for you to process and release to Yardi for payment creation. You will also have flexibility in that you can remove the bill pay designation on a payment and process a check cash in-house when needed. Your team will be able to track payment status using the bill pay dashboard and reports. And training on this dashboard and reports can take as little as 2 hours. Bill pay electronically pulls your process payment information, and then the payment status is updated from being processed and sent and received to finally a status of sent to payee. You will be able to view any alerts for failed NSF payments and other return transactions. So no overall changes to your AP process. You still have full control over which and when payments are released. And the bill pay dashboard and reports provide full transparency into payment information. So here at Yardi, our goal is to dramatically reduce friction across all elements of the procurement lifecycle. So we want to improve vendor management by providing an online vendor-facing portal with visibility into their daily business with you. We also want to provide a way to automate the creation of invoices through vendor submission, EDI, or use of our full service. We also want to simplify purchasing while providing control and insight into your procurement process and spend. And for invoice processing, we want to provide an easy way to review and approve an invoice while also reducing time spent on these reviews by automating online workflows and providing mobile access. Lastly, we want your organization to stop spending time printing checks and stuffing envelopes. This is especially important today as no one wants to travel into the office simply to print checks. So now let's take a look at Yardi's procure-to-pay. So this is Yardi's procure-to-pay. Let's start first by going into Marketplace and placing an order. And remember, Marketplace is our centralized procurement platform where you can ensure procurement compliancy and spend. And so here I have all of the catalog items that I desire to share with my team based upon the property that I'm purchasing for. I can also display preferred products to my team as well. I can also share with them shopping lists. Shopping lists are very useful because we can take a list of items that you order on a recurring basis, and we can also pre-assign a GL code to this item. I'm going to go ahead and order this smoke detector and add it to my cart. And now I'm going to assign an expense type to this item. And the expense type helps routing of the approval process. And now I'm going to proceed to checkout and review my address information. And here I can review my order. I can always order across suppliers, and what will occur is either multiple orders will be sent or multiple purchase orders will be created. So here I'm going to populate my purchase order. Again, please know that if you're not using purchase orders today, that's not a problem. We will simply configure Marketplace to send your order directly to your supplier. So here's my created purchase order, and it's brought over all the information from my order for this smoke detector. I'm going to go ahead and easily approve this PO. Again, I can use my mobile app as well to place orders and also to approve my purchase orders. Here it's letting me know that this item is over budget, and I can enter an over budget explanation. And now my purchase order has been approved And because this purchase order originated from Marketplace, the order is automatically sent to the supplier for fulfillment. So now let's move from purchase orders and let's look at the VendorCafe dashboard. This is the dashboard that your team will use for your day-to-day vendor management. Now, you can easily look up one particular vendor if needed. And review all of their information and review their insurance details if needed. Or from my dashboard, I can easily view the vendor status. So here I can see my pending vendors that I've invited to VendorCafe and their status for activation of their accounts and their registration. I can also easily see the compliance status for all my vendors and pull up a non-compliant vendor. And from here, I can easily see their compliance status and the reasons that they may be non-compliant. Here, I can also see any action items that I have for my incomplete invitations for vendors, as well as my vendor approvals where vendors have made changes to their profile and submitted it for approval. So vendors can make changes using VendorCafe to their remit address and other information, but please know that those changes are not written to your vendor record until you approve the vendor's submission. So this is your VendorCafe dashboard. Now let's go in and see exactly what the vendor sees in VendorCafe. So here is the VendorCafe dashboard. And again, from this dashboard, I can easily see my pending invoices. And this will show me real-time status information. And again, this is useful because the vendor will not have to contact your team and ask for a status update. They can log in and easily see all of their pending invoices. So here I have one that is pending approval and one that is approved. From here, I can also see payment register information. So once the invoice is approved and paid, I can see all of my payment information. I can open up associated invoices and see invoice information in detail, as well as payment details. In addition to being able to view invoice and payment status, I can also view any work orders assigned to me, as well as any RFPs and purchase orders. So here we show vendors their approved purchase orders, and they can drill into these purchase orders and see the information on the purchase order. They can also create an invoice very easily against this purchase order, as well as against their work orders. So here I will enter a work order number and a description, and enter my invoice date. And now I can save my invoice. When we save the invoice, VendorCafe does some validations. We make sure, of course, that the math works. We also make sure that this is not a duplicate invoice. And now I can submit this invoice, and it will go directly into PayScan and initiate your workflow approval. In addition to this, the vendor can also see their compliancy status in real time as well. So for my vendor here, I am compliant for my universal checks, as well as my insurance verification. So now we have placed an order, we've approved the purchase order, we've looked at your VendorCafe dashboard, as well as we've looked at the vendor's view. Now let's go back into procure-to-pay and let's look at invoice processing. So I'm going to go to the invoice dashboard, These are all of my pending invoices. I can very easily filter here at the top for a payee or a particular property, or I can save a filter as needed if it's one that I'm using a lot. I can also filter, as you can see, I have filtered here by the invoices that are requiring my approvals. I can also filter by invoice status and expense type and due dates. So now I'll go back and filter simply for the invoices that are awaiting my approval. And now let's look at the invoice in detail. So as the invoice comes up, you're going to notice this invoice ribbon at the top. This is configurable. This is designed so that reviewers and approvers can easily see the information that's important to them, such as amount, due date, is it over budget or not? If it is over budget, as it is in this example, I can drill into the budget information and see exactly my over budget variance. In this example, I am over budget for the month to date. And I can also view other records that are making up this over budget variance. In addition to seeing real-time budget information, I can also see any milestones for this invoice, which is a summary of the audit history of invoice creation as well as workflow history. On the side here, you will note that we display the invoice image, and by default, we magnify this image. You can also easily pop this image out and display it on another monitor. But here you can also view it just simply using your laptop as well. Now I can easily approve this invoice by selecting the next step and clicking save. I can enter any step notes, or you can click save and next. Before I move this invoice along, one of the other things that I can do is if I ever have a question about the invoice, I can always add a note to the activity feed and tag any person within my organization. This activity will also be kept in audit history, my questions and the response of the person that replies. So I'm going to save this invoice. And now once you have approved this invoice and it is ready for a payment, now you're simply going to commit your payment as you do today, or if you're auto committing, and then you're simply going to process payments. And again, here I'm displaying all of my bill pay payments, and you can easily unselect this designation and process these payments in-house. So our adoption rate illustrates our success in eliminating pain points for procure-to-pay and providing a frictionless procure-to-pay process to our clients. So I'm very proud to work for Yardi Systems, where our motto is take care of our clients, take care of our employees, take care of our communities, stay focused and grow. Thanks everyone for your time today. For more information on Yardi's Procure-to-Pay, please visit our networking lounge to talk to your Yardi subject matter experts.